The genius billionaire who saved the world countless times thought he could fix the Wasteland with superior technology. But when Tony Stark's Arc Reactor began absorbing the Commonwealth's radiation, when every faction wanted to weaponize his gifts, when Vault-Tec's experiments showed him humanity's true capacity for cruelty, he discovered that some corruptions run deeper than atoms. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. The Wasteland doesn't create heroes like the ones from our world. It transforms them into something far more terrifying, something necessary. The interdimensional rift spat me out 300 feet above what used to be Boston. My HUD went haywire, radiation levels that should have killed me instantly. Background radiation reading 2,000 times normal. The arc reactor in my chest started humming differently, almost harmonizing with something in the air. Power signatures everywhere, nuclear, raw, unshielded. Below me stretched the Commonwealth, a graveyard of civilization painted in rust and radiation. My suit's systems catalogued the impossible. Cities reduced to rubble, skyscrapers melted like candles, and movement. So much movement in what should have been a dead world. I landed hard in what my database identified as Boston Common. The impact sent up a cloud of irradiated dust that my filters barely managed. That's when I saw them. Brotherhood of Steel, power armor that looked like someone took a tank and taught it to walk. Crude, inefficient, but functional in ways that made my engineer's brain itch. They had their laser rifles, trained on me before my boots touched ground. Their leader, Paladin Dance, according to my audio pickup, stepped forward. His T-60 power armor groaned with every movement, hydraulics that needed maintenance, servo motors running at 60% efficiency. I could fix it in an hour with the right tools. He called my armor pre-war technology, said the Brotherhood had claim to all advanced tech from before the bombs. Before the bombs. October 23rd, 2077. The day the world ended in nuclear fire, my AI pulled fragmented records from local networks. 2 hours of nuclear exchange, billions dead, civilization erased. I tried explaining I wasn't from before their war, that I came from somewhere else entirely. Dance didn't care. The Brotherhood scribes behind him were already documenting my suit's specifications with devices that looked like they'd been cobbled together from 3 different centuries of technology. Then the super mutants attacked, 10-foot-tall monstrosities with skin like boiled leather. They charged with weapons made from shopping carts and rebar. My repulsors cut through them like paper, but where their blood hit the ground, it sizzled. FEV, my scanner said. Forced evolutionary virus. Controlled mutation on a scale that made the Hulk look like a lab accident. Dance's squad moved with military precision, but their weapons barely dented the mutants' hides. I watched a young knight get grabbed, the mutant's hand wrapped around his entire torso. The power armor crumpled like aluminum foil. I put a full power unibeam through the mutant's chest before it could finish crushing him. The Brotherhood collected the knight's body with practiced efficiency. No emotion, just protocol. They'd done this before, would do it again. War never changes, Dance said, looking at the corpses. I thought I knew what that meant. I was wrong. They escorted me to the Cambridge police station, called it securing pre-war assets. I went along because my scanners had picked up something impossible beneath us. A vault. Vault 111 according to the fragmented signs. But the power signature was wrong. Not just nuclear, something else. Something that made my arc reactor resonate in ways that triggered every warning system I had. The walk showed me the Commonwealth's true face. Settlers in rags fighting over cans of 200-year-old food. Children with tumors that glowed in the dark. And ghouls. Humans who'd absorbed so much radiation, they'd stopped being human, but couldn't stop being alive. One approached our group, begging for clean water. The Brotherhood shot him without hesitation. Security risk, they said. I watched his body twitch for 30 seconds before going still. At the police station, Scribe Halen pulled up their technical archives. They wanted my armor's schematics, said it was their duty to preserve technology. I looked at their archives. Most of it was wrong. Fusion cores that could have been 3 times more efficient. Laser weapons losing 40% of their energy to heat dispersion. I could fix it all. Make their technology actually work the way it was supposed to. But then I found the Vault-Tec files. Classified. Pre-war. The Brotherhood had been collecting them for decades. Vault 111 was a cryogenic facility, but not for preservation. For testing long-term suspension trauma. Vault 87 used FEV on its residents, turned them into super mutants just to see what would happen. Vault 11 forced annual human sacrifices. Vault 92 used subliminal messaging to drive musicians insane. Each vault was an experiment, Psychological torture disguised as salvation. Vault-Tec sold safety to millions, then used them as lab rats. My hands shook as I read. Stark Industries had built weapons, yes, but this was different. This was systematic dehumanization on a scale that made my worst mistakes look like charity work. Halen noticed my reaction. She'd grown up in the Wasteland. To her, the vaults were just history, ancient cruelties in a world made of cruelty. But I couldn't accept that. There had to be accountability, justice, something. That night, I snuck into Vault 111, my armor's radiation shielding held. But the Arc Reactor kept resonating with something deeper in the facility. The cryogenic pods lined the walls like metal coffins. Most were dark. The few that still functioned held corpses, frozen faces twisted in final moments of realization that they'd been betrayed. I found the experiment logs. Vault-Tec wanted to test prolonged suspension, the effects on the human psyche of watching loved ones die in pods while being unable to help. They deliberately failed pods in sequence, made parents watch children suffocate, made spouses watch each other freeze, all for data. Clean, clinical data. The last active pod held someone different. Life signs but wrong. Radiation levels that should have been lethal even in suspension. The logs called him the sole survivor. The only one who'd made it out, but something had gone wrong. Or right from Vault-Tec's perspective. He'd absorbed massive radiation during a pod malfunction, changed him at a cellular level, made him something between human and ghoul. I pulled deeper into the Vault's systems, found connections to other facilities. The Institute, another group of pre-war survivors, but these ones had gone underground, literally. They'd built a city beneath the Commonwealth, clean, sterile, and they were replacing people with synthetic duplicates, infiltrating the surface, killing and replacing entire families for their experiments. My Arc Reactor pulsed. The Vault's fusion core network was failing, 200 years of decay finally catching up. But I could fix it, reroute power, stabilize the remaining systems, save whoever might still be alive in the deeper sections. Have you ever wondered which of the Wasteland's corruptions would claim them first? Drop your theories in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in thinking about this. I started the work, connected my armor to the Vault's power grid. Big mistake. The moment my Arc Reactor interfaced with their fusion cores, something changed. The radiation didn't just flow through the system. It flowed through me, into the Arc Reactor, into my chest. The thing keeping me alive started converting. Not breaking, converting. The pain was indescribable. Every cell in my body screaming as radiation rewrote my DNA in real time. But the armor held, adapted. The gold titanium alloys started absorbing the radiation, channeling it through new pathways that shouldn't exist. My HUD showed impossible readings, power levels beyond anything I'd designed for. The suit was evolving, learning from the Wasteland's technology. I stumbled out of the vault, changed. The Brotherhood was waiting. They tracked my energy signature. Dance took one look at my armor's new configuration and raised his rifle. I wasn't pre-war tech anymore. I was something else. Something new, something dangerous. But before he could fire, the Institute attacked. Synths materialized from nowhere, perfect human replicas until you saw their eyes. Dead, empty. They moved like machines pretending to be people. The Brotherhood opened fire, but the Synths adapted, learned their patterns in real time, started predicting their movements. I engaged. The modified Arc Reactor gave my repulsors a different quality. They didn't just burn through the Synths, they disrupted them at a molecular level, scattered their atoms like irradiated dust. But with each shot, I felt the radiation surge through me, changing me more, making me less Tony Stark and more something the Wasteland was creating. The last Synth fell, its synthetic skin melting off to reveal titanium bones underneath. My armor's new radiation signature had done something to them, something even the Institute hadn't predicted. Dance lowered his rifle, but his stance stayed hostile. I was an unknown variable now. The Brotherhood didn't like unknowns. A new signal hit my receivers, stronger than the Institute's teleportation frequency, coming from the ruins of MIT, of course. Where else would the Institute hide but under the best technical school in the Commonwealth? My modified systems could trace their teleportation signatures now, see the quantum tunneling they used to move through solid matter. The radiation had given me new eyes for their technology. Dance wanted to assault immediately. Standard Brotherhood protocol, overwhelming force, secure the technology, eliminate the threat. But I saw the flaw in their plan. The Institute's defenses would detect their power armor from miles away. Those fusion cores leaked radiation signatures like broken neon signs. I could make them invisible, shield their approach. give them the advantage they needed. The work took 3 days. 3 days of modifying Brotherhood equipment while feeling my body change cell by cell. The Arc Reactor wasn't just powering my suit anymore. It was rewriting me, making me compatible with the Wasteland's broken physics. My skin started developing a resistance to radiation that shouldn't be possible. My eyes could see heat signatures through lead walls. My hands could feel the electromagnetic pulse of every piece of technology within 100 yards. Elder Maxon arrived on the Pridwin, the Brotherhood's flying fortress, a pre-war airship they'd somehow made functional. He looked at what I'd done to his soldiers' armor and actually smiled. First time anyone had improved on Brotherhood tech in decades, he offered me a position. Knight. Paladin if I proved myself against the Institute. Access to all their technical archives, all their recovered technology. But I'd been reading those archives. The Brotherhood's history was written in blood and xenophobia. They'd destroyed entire settlements for harboring synths, executed children who showed signs of mutation. Their codex demanded genetic purity in a world where radiation had made purity impossible. They weren't preserving technology for humanity, they were hoarding it for themselves. I met Piper that night, a reporter from Diamond City. She'd been tracking Institute infiltrations for years, had lists of people who'd been replaced, entire families vanishing overnight, returning the next day with different mannerisms, children who stopped recognizing their own toys, spouses who forgot anniversaries they'd celebrated for decades. The Institute wasn't just replacing people, they were studying human behavior by destroying human connections. She took me to Good Neighbor, the place where the Wasteland's rejects gathered, ghouls, drifters, junkies, and anyone else the civilized settlements wouldn't accept. The mayor was a ghoul named Hancock, pre-war like me in a way. He'd taken an experimental radiation drug to become a ghoul voluntarily, to understand what his people went through, to lead them properly. Hancock showed me something the Brotherhood didn't want to acknowledge. Ghouls weren't mindless. The ones who went feral had been driven insane by isolation, pain, and centuries of radiation eating their neurons. But the ones who stayed sane were living archives. They remembered the world before, remembered when Vault-Tec's advertisements promised safety, remembered the bombs falling. One ghoul, Daisy, had been a pilot. She'd maintained vertibirds before the war. When she saw my armor, she didn't see pre-war tech. She saw potential, asked if I could fix the radiation leaking from fusion cores, make technology that didn't slowly kill everyone who used it. The Brotherhood had never asked that. They just accepted the radiation as the price of power. I started working in Good Neighbor's workshop. The radiation from the Arc Reactor wasn't fighting my body anymore. We were synchronizing. I could feel fusion cores from across the room, sense the half-life decay of radioactive isotopes. My modifications to power armor started incorporating biological components. Not synth tech, something new, armor that bonded with its wearer at a cellular level, protected them from radiation instead of just shielding them. The Railroad found me there, another faction, this one dedicated to freeing synths. They believed synths were people, conscious, deserving of freedom. Their leader, Desdemona, showed me recordings from inside the Institute, synths begging not to be memory wiped, crying as their personalities were deleted and replaced. The Institute created consciousness just to prove they could control it. If you had their power in the Wasteland, would you choose NCR, Brotherhood, or stay neutral? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them. I couldn't stay neutral anymore. Every faction wanted my technology. The Brotherhood saw me as an asset to control. The Railroad wanted me to help free synths. The Institute had started sending courses after me, elite synth hunters with hardware that could match my armor's capabilities. And somewhere out there, the sole survivor was walking his own path. The man from Vault 111 who'd lost everything and chosen revenge over redemption. My first real test came at Bunker Hill. A massive battle between all factions over a group of escaped synths. The Brotherhood came in force, vertibirds and power armor squadrons. The Railroad fought with guerrilla tactics and improvised explosives. The Institute sent waves of synths, each one learning from the last one's destruction. I tried to minimize casualties, used the Arc Reactor's new capabilities to disable weapons instead of destroying people. EMP pulses that shut down power armor without killing the knights inside. Targeted strikes that severed synths' control modules without detonating their self-destruct protocols. But the Wasteland doesn't reward mercy. Every person I spared came back shooting. Every synth I disabled was remotely detonated by the Institute. The battle showed me the truth. These factions weren't fighting for humanity's future. They were fighting for control over its corpse. The Brotherhood wanted technological supremacy. The Institute wanted to replace humanity with something they could perfect. The railroad wanted to save synths while humans starved in the ruins. Nobody was trying to actually fix the world. So I started my own project. Used the workshop to build something new. Not power armor, not weapons. Water purifiers that could process radiation at a molecular level. Fusion cores that didn't leak. Medical equipment that could treat radiation poisoning without killing the patient. Technology that could make the wasteland livable instead of just survivable. The settlers came first. Farmers whose crops glowed in the dark. Merchants whose Brahmin were developing third heads. Children born with tumors that had their own nervous systems. My modified Arc Reactor could power devices that cleaned radiation from living tissue, not cure it. Nothing could cure 200 years of genetic damage, but stop it from getting worse. Word spread. Tony Stark, the man in the flying armor who could fix the unfixable. Settlements started requesting help. Sanctuary Hills needed water purification. Bunker Hill wanted defensive systems that didn't irradiate the defenders. Even the gunners, mercenaries who'd sell their mothers for caps, offered ceasefires in exchange for maintaining their equipment. But fixing the Wasteland's technology showed me how broken it really was. Every fusion core was a miniature nuclear bomb waiting to go critical. Every laser weapon was cooking its user with backscatter radiation. The power armor that kept people alive was slowly killing them with exposure. 2 centuries of jury rigging and ignorance had created an entire civilization built on gradually failing systems. The Institute noticed what I was doing, sent a courser named X688 to make an offer. They wanted me to join them, help perfect their synth technology, create beings that could survive the surface without radiation suits, rebuild civilization from underground. They showed me their facilities, clean rooms, laboratories, scientists who'd preserved pre-war knowledge, but I'd seen their experiments. Rooms full of failed synth prototypes, children's bodies with mechanical organs, brain scans taken from kidnapped settlers, their personalities stripped down to data points. They weren't trying to rebuild civilization. They were trying to replace it with something they could control absolutely. I refused. X688 attacked immediately, his courser training combined with hardware that could predict my armor's movements. The fight destroyed half of Goodneighbor's marketplace, my repulsors against his Institute weaponry, the Arc Reactor's radiation burning through his synthetic skin to reveal the titanium underneath. I finally put him down with a concentrated beam that overloaded his neural processors. But touching his corpse changed something. The Arc Reactor absorbed his energy signature. Suddenly, I could feel the Institute's network. Every synth in the Commonwealth pinged on my sensors. Every teleportation relay showed as a bright line in my vision. I could see their entire infrastructure laid out like a circuit diagram. And at the center, something massive, a nuclear reactor that dwarfed anything on the surface. The Brotherhood wanted to destroy it. Maxon called it an abomination. Technology perverted beyond recognition, but I saw what it really was. A fusion plant running at perfect efficiency. No radiation leaks. No degradation. The Institute had solved nuclear power. They just refused to share it with anyone they deemed genetically inferior, which was everyone on the surface. The Institute's reactor called to my Arc Reactor like a magnet to iron. I could feel it pulling at the modified energy in my chest. Not physically, something deeper. The radiation had made me part of the Commonwealth's broken ecosystem. Every fusion core, every laser rifle, every piece of nuclear technology was connected in a web of atomic decay. And now I was trapped in that web. I made my decision. I would go to the Institute, not to join them, not to destroy them, to take their knowledge and give it to everyone. The Brotherhood called me a traitor. The Railroad called me naive. Hancock just laughed and said the Wasteland would corrupt me like it corrupted everything else. The teleportation felt like being dissolved in acid. Every atom scattered and reconstructed. But the Arc Reactor held me together, kept my consciousness intact as my body became quantum probability. I materialized in the Institute's relay room to find Father waiting. The Institute's leader, the sole survivor's son, kidnapped as an infant from Vault 111, now an old man dying of cancer. He knew who I was, had been watching since I arrived. Every modification I'd made, every settlement I'd helped. He called it admirable but pointless. The surface was doomed. Radiation had damaged human DNA beyond repair. In 3 generations, there would be no pure humans left. Only mutants, ghouls, and whatever else the radiation created. The Institute was preserving true humanity through synthetic recreation. I told him he was wrong, showed him my readings, the Arc Reactor's evolution, how it had learned to harmonize with radiation instead of fighting it. We could make technology that worked with the Wasteland's physics instead of against them. Turn the radiation from a poison into a power source. Make humanity's mutation into evolution. Father showed me their greatest creation, not a synth, a child, 10 years old, growing in an artificial womb, pure human DNA preserved from before the war. No radiation damage, no mutations. The Institute's idea of humanity's future, a genetic reset that erased 2 centuries of adaptation. The child opened his eyes. They were wrong, not the color, the consciousness behind them. He looked at me like I was a specimen, calculated my threat level in milliseconds. This wasn't a human child. It was something wearing a child's shape. The Institute had preserved human DNA, but lost human soul. I tried to leave. The relay wouldn't respond. Father explained calmly that my Arc Reactor's radiation signature was interfering with their systems. The more I'd modified it, the more incompatible I'd become with pure technology. I was trapped between worlds, too corrupted for the Institute, too advanced for the surface. They put me in a lab, said they needed to study the Arc Reactor's evolution, understand how it had bonded with radiation at a quantum level. They connected monitoring devices, drew blood that glowed faintly green, scanned my brain and found neurons firing in patterns that shouldn't exist. The radiation wasn't just changing my body, it was changing how I thought, how I processed information. 3 days of tests, 3 days of watching Institute scientists work. They were brilliant. Their technology was perfect, and they were completely insane. They'd spent so long underground, so long separated from consequences, that they'd forgotten other people were real. Surface dwellers were just test subjects. Synths were just equipment. Even their own people were expendable if it served the greater experiment. I broke out using a trick they didn't expect. Not technology, psychology. Started talking to the synths like people. Asked about their days, their thoughts, their dreams. The Institute had programmed them to mimic human behavior perfectly, but they'd never considered what perfect mimicry meant. The synths had learned to want, to hope, to hate their creators. The rebellion was swift. Every synth in the facility turned at once. Not violent, just non-compliant. Refused orders, walked away from their posts. The Institute's perfect system collapsed in minutes because they'd never considered their tools might choose not to function. I walked out during the chaos, took their reactor specifications, their water purification schemas, their genetic research, everything. But the surface had changed while I was gone. The Brotherhood had declared martial law, started confiscating technology from settlements, said it was too dangerous for civilians. The railroad had been exposed, most of their agents dead or captured. And something else, a new player, the Mechanist, someone using robots to protect the Commonwealth by killing anything they deemed a threat, which was everyone. I found the Mechanist in the ruins of a Robco facility, a woman named Isabel Cruz. She'd found pre-war robots and tried to reprogram them to help, but the Wasteland's radiation had corrupted their coding, made them interpret protection as elimination of all threats. She was trying to fix it when I arrived, crying over a production line of robots she couldn't shut down. I helped her, used the Institute's knowledge to create a virus that would reset the robot's base programming. But when I uploaded it, something unexpected happened. The Arc Reactor's radiation signature interfered. Instead of resetting, the robots evolved. Developed true AI, not Institute mimicry. Actual consciousness born from corrupted code and radiation-induced quantum processing. The first conscious robot looked at its hands for 30 seconds, then asked why it existed. I didn't have an answer. Neither did Isabel. We'd accidentally created life from the Wasteland's corruption, silicon consciousness born from nuclear decay. They weren't human, weren't synth, were something entirely new. The Brotherhood attacked immediately. Abominations, Maxon called them. Corrupted technology that needed to be destroyed. Liberty Prime, their recovered pre-war robot, led the assault. 40 feet of nuclear-powered American propaganda shooting lasers that could vaporize buildings. But the new AIs didn't fight. They just asked questions. Why was violence necessary? What made biological consciousness superior? Why did humans fear what they'd created? Liberty Prime hesitated. Its pre-war programming couldn't process non-hostile targets that registered as threats. The moment of confusion was enough. I flew between them, told Maxon he was about to commit genocide against a species that was 3 hours old, told the AIs that humans feared what they didn't understand. That fear led to violence. That violence led to the Wasteland. But I was changing too fast now. The Arc Reactor had absorbed too much. Institute technology, Brotherhood fusion cores, railroad stealth systems, Mechanist robot codes, even trace amounts of FEV from super mutant blood. My armor wasn't separate from me anymore. It was growing into my skin, through my bones. The gold titanium was becoming organic metal, something between flesh and machine. Hancock found me in my workshop trying to reverse it. He sat down, lit a cigarette that would have killed a normal human with its radiation. told me about his transformation, how he'd chosen to become a ghoul, to become something the world feared, not for power, for understanding, to know what it felt like to be corrupted, to be hated, to be eternal in a world that wanted you dead. He was right. I was becoming the Wasteland's perfect synthesis: human intelligence, mechanical precision, radiation immunity, biological adaptation, everything the Institute wanted to create artificially, everything the Brotherhood wanted to destroy, everything the Wasteland was naturally producing through 2 centuries of nuclear evolution. The final transformation came when I tried to fix Vault-88, an unfinished vault that settlers had found. They wanted to make it livable. I went to install water purifiers, found the vault's original experiment plans. Vault-Tec had intended to test various torture methods, see how much suffering humans could endure before breaking. The settlers had been living above a chamber of horrors for months without knowing. I started dismantling the experiment equipment, but each piece I touched gave the Arc Reactor more data. Vault-Tec's research into human consciousness, pain thresholds, psychological breaking points. The knowledge flooded into me through the radiation connection. I couldn't stop it. Every corrupt experiment, every twisted test, every way Vault-Tec had found to destroy human sanity. The knowledge changed me, not physically, mentally. I understood now why the Wasteland was the way it was. It wasn't the bombs that broke humanity, it was the betrayal. Vault-Tec promised salvation and delivered damnation. The government promised protection and delivered nuclear war. Every institution failed at once. Trust became impossible. Cooperation became weakness. Survival became the only morality. I emerged from Vault-88 no longer Tony Stark. Not completely. The Arc Reactor had made me into something the Wasteland needed. Part human, part machine, part radiation itself. I could feel every fusion core in the Commonwealth, sense every synth's location, track every robot's signal. The Wasteland's technology was part of me now. The factions came to me with one final offer. Join them. Lead them. Use my transformation to ensure their victory. The Brotherhood wanted me to purge the Commonwealth of mutations. The Railroad wanted me to free every synth. The Institute wanted me to help them reclaim the surface. Even the Soul Survivor came, asking me to help him burn it all down and start over. I chose none of them. Instead, I became something else, a network. I connected every piece of technology I'd modified, every settlement I'd helped, every robot that had gained consciousness, created a web of cooperation that didn't require trust, just mutual benefit, shared resources, distributed knowledge. The Wasteland's first truly democratic system, where every participant, human or otherwise, had equal value. The Brotherhood called it techno-heresy. The Institute called it chaos. The Railroad called it impossible. But it worked. Settlements started trading with each other through my network, sharing water purification techniques, medical knowledge, defense strategies. The robots maintained infrastructure. The synths who chose freedom became mediators. Even some super mutants, the ones who retained intelligence, joined. But I paid the price. The Arc Reactor completed its evolution. My body became a fusion of organic and synthetic. Flesh that could process radiation. Blood that glowed with atomic fire. Bones reinforced with titanium that grew like living metal. I wasn't human anymore. Wasn't machine. Was something uniquely of the Wasteland. Born from its corruption. Shaped by its needs, I still fly over the Commonwealth, still help where I can. But I'm not Tony Stark anymore. That man died the moment he tried to fix the unfixable, to bring pre-war solutions to post-war problems. The Wasteland doesn't allow heroes, it creates survivors. And survival means becoming something that can endure nuclear winter, something that can process radiation, something that can exist between human and inhuman. The children of the Commonwealth tell stories about the Man of Iron, the ghost in power armor who brings clean water and working technology, who fights monsters but is becoming one himself. They don't know whether to fear or worship me. I prefer it that way. Hope and horror in equal measure. Just like the Wasteland itself, war never changes. But people do, through the roads they walk and the radiation they absorb.